In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Well, good morning, everybody. God bless you. Good morning to Jovan and Helia and Ahmed. Ahmed, along with your own family, apparently, Harry Potter, Ronald Weasley, and Hermione Granger all turned up on Sunday. It's been looking at the sheet you have to sign when you come into a church to say you're being here. So I have to tell you, you've all got COVID. Anyway, I can say possibly you had a magic time on Sunday. There we go. Good morning, Natalia. God bless you as well. Helia. Well, you can probably see it written already. It's a blessed day, but it's very cold. If sunny, very sunny. And the other thing that's happened is I must go and get my car from the garage. It's now hopefully been fixed and should be driving quite nicely now. Good morning, Elizabeth. Various teacherly friends of mine have said how difficult it is still teaching wearing a mask and having to do parents' evenings and stuff online when the computer keeps on crashing. Something like School Cloud or something. There we go. Things people have to put up with. I've had a wonderful weekend. As you know, I didn't answer. I didn't even look at the computer for the whole of Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So 2 days in full, in fact. Had a quick look yesterday and a last look on Sunday, very early. And in that time, the number of unanswered emails last night was 980. How can that be? And lots of people on Facebook wondering if I'm still alive and if they need to hurry around with an ambulance. And on YouTube, any number of comments from all over the place requiring an answer. There we go. And telephone. I didn't look at the telephone either. I thought I wouldn't. That and what's it called? WhatsApp and the ordinary phone messaging thing. Absolutely full of messages. Mostly wishing me a happy birthday and then wondering if I'm okay because I didn't immediately answer. There we go. Okay, we'll certainly pray for your grandmother, Maria. Anton, good morning. God bless you. Don't worry about the surprise visitors on the list, Carl. Happy Wednesday to you also. I'll certainly pray for her too. Okay, good morning, Christina. Thank you for your message on Skype. And Dino, God bless you. I did notice first thing this morning when I looked at the email very briefly that there was one from you, and pray obviously that your brother may have memory eternal in the heart of God and that Christ will bring him to resurrection and give you consolation as well. So it's a shocking and terrible thing. Death, of course, is not thought by Christianity to be a natural thing. It is an unnatural thing pressed upon us by the fall. And Christ is the cure for this unnatural phenomenon. And that is why we always find death so shocking. There's a feeling within us that it should not be. And it should not be. Along with death, along with illness and all the other things that happen. We'll see something about that today in the readings we'll have today. So our hearts are with you, Dino. God bless you. Vicky, good morning. Beverly, good morning. Carrie, good morning also. Right, let's get going. Crack on, as apparently I say from time to time. Luke chapter 4, verses 38 to 41. I had a look at the earlier bits earlier and I thought, I sort of recognize this, I thought. It is Sabbath, and the Lord is in Capernaum, and this is what happened. He's already in Capernaum, healed somebody of a demon, cast out a demon inside the synagogue, and now he is leaving it. Now, he arose from the synagogue and entered Simon's house. But Simon's wife's mother was sick with a high fever, and they made request of him concerning her. So he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And immediately she arose and served them. While the sun was setting, all those who had any that were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he laid their hands on every one of them and healed them. And demons also came out of many, crying out and saying, "You are the Christ, the Son of God." And he, rebuking them, did not allow them to speak, for they knew that he was the Christ. Okay, so here we have an interesting episode, really, in all sorts of ways. I'll try and explain why I find that it is important for you to see this. So first of all, it's still Saturday. It is the Sabbath, and they are still in Capernaum. The Lord is going to make Capernaum his headquarters, but just like in Nazareth, Capernaum is not going to get any special favors out of him. We'll see about that, God willing, tomorrow. So Luke gives an account of a typical day. Now, this is a sort of typical Saturday, typical Sabbath. The Lord goes into a synagogue, he preaches, people are astounded. If there's anybody there that needs healing, he heals them. People are even more astounded. He then goes off and has lunch somewhere and presumably a rest, because it is, after all, the Sabbath. And he then cracks on and gets on with teaching, preaching, and healing and casting out demons once evening comes. Okay, that's the surface of this. So let's have another look down. So the Lord has already healed somebody of their demon possession. Well, I don't know if you can hear that, but the red arrows, which are the British RAF, Royal Air Force, I don't know what it's called, trick flying, display team, something like that, has gone roaring overhead. Now, still on the Sabbath, he's confronted with a woman with a fever. So in verse 38, now he arose from the synagogue and enters Simon's house. But Simon's wife's mother was sick with a high fever, and they made request of him concerning her. Interestingly, we know where Capernaum is, or was, because it's now a set of ruins, and we know where the synagogue was, because there are some quite fine ruins on top of the synagogue that was there in the first century AD. It was then rebuilt, even posher later on, but we can see where that was. And we also know where Simon Peter's house was, because it's been dug up, and it was much modified over the next 300 years, extended, and the main room, Simon's would have been his main living room, was plastered, would not have been plastered before, extended, strengthened, given a better roof, and so on. So we know exactly where that was. It's about 80, well, according to one person writing, it is 84 feet between the entrance of the synagogue and the entrance to Simon Peter's house. So 40 feet away, 84 feet away. And you can still see it now. It's now underneath the Roman Catholic Church. And apparently, if you go into that Roman Catholic Church and look through the sort of window, you can see down into Simon Peter's house. Isn't that an extraordinary thing? And all sorts of graffiti and other things in the house, and it's been decorated nicely and so on. So there we go. Fantastic to be able to see exactly where these miracles happened. Anyway, the Lord enters into Simon's house, and that means that Simon Peter must have known the Lord beforehand, and something about their relationship, maybe before he was staying nearby. But from the synagogue, that's where he goes, and he accepts Simon's hospitality. And even though Simon himself, that's St. Peter, even though Simon Peter says later, I'm a sinful man, depart from me. There is something about his hospitality which is in itself salvific. St. Peter gives to the Lord hospitality, even knowing that his mother-in-law, who was the one who's going to make all the food and so on, was already ill. So that's rather good of him. He's not worrying about these other things. It's also very typical of St. Luke to mention Simon Peter and then sort of forget about him for a bit and then bring him back onto the stage. He does this quite often. Brings somebody up, you then leave them for a bit, and then he introduces them again with the reason why he gives you a sort of taster and a teaser. It's a bit like watching a preview of a film. You've had a taster, now you want to go and see the film. He does this with other people, and most notably, obviously, with St. Paul, well, also St. Stephen. He mentions St. Stephen as one of the deacons, then later on brings him in as the protomartyr. He mentions St. Paul at that point in chapter 7 of Acts. And then somewhat later, he brings him in as the main character that he talks about for the rest of Acts of the Apostles. Or you have St. Barnabas, who's mentioned in passing, and then is brought in as a major character within Acts of the Apostles as well. And here, Luke is doing what he does later on. So this is the teaser. Right, there we go. And the next thing about, interesting thing, enters into the house and they say to him, well, his mother, Simon's wife's mother, is sick with a high fever. Now, in Greek, it actually says she is oppressed with. And that's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? Because the Lord is there to release people. Remember, to proclaim freedom to captives. And here we've got another sort of freedom for a different sort of captive. And this person is captive with a fever. Pireto megalo, it says in Greek. Pireto megalo. That word pireto is where we get pyros from, pyrrhic, like fire. So she's sort of oppressed with a great burning. I'm probably thinking about the Greek word rather than the English one. Where do we use pyrrhic and stuff? In chemistry, you use it quite a lot. And anyway, there we are. So pireto megalo, a great burning. She is oppressed with this great burning, and therefore also probably was delirious. And this delirium, this great burning within her, was a sign of not being in control of yourself. And that is also an important thing. So she's very ill. She's oppressed with this great fever, very poorly. And Luke gives the fever a personal quality. It's the fever who's come upon her and is oppressing her. We might say nowadays she's oppressed with disease. She's ill. She's no longer capable of being able to control herself. She's lost self-control. And that's important because any sort of loss of self-control is always seen as being something that is demonic. So the loss of self-control might be from the demon. The demon himself or itself comes into you and makes you mad. The loss of self-control might be from a disease organism which has its own particular activity and work that it should be doing, that it makes it part of the kingdom of heaven, but it is now itself out of control and causes disease rather than anything else. We know that our bodies are absolutely filled with bacteria, and every mitochondrion within us is actually developed from a bacterium. And our guts are full of all sorts of healthy bacteria without which we cannot live. And something around about a third of our dry body weight is actually bacterial or comes from bacteria. There are doubtless any number of viruses that one way and another do good things to us as well. And we can then sort of hop from there to other things that make us lose control. There is nothing wrong, essentially, with drinking alcohol. But drinking alcohol until you become out of control with it, that is wrong, because you're now out of control. There's nothing wrong with eating food. But once the food itself begins to oppress you, and all you can think about all day long is ice cream or cream buns or, I don't know, chocolate cake or eating pork chops or something, then something has become disfigured within you, and you need then to control it. All sorts of other things. I know people who become completely overwhelmed by the need to do exercise all the time, and they become the gym bunny of gym bunnies. Um, and that also becomes an addiction to them, and they're now out of control. They can no longer control the very good urge to become fit and healthy, and they now become disfigured by the need to become ever more muscular or ever more skinny or whatever it might be. And these things might not be their own fault. It's something that has actually overtaken them. You know, nobody would say that somebody had bulimia. This is his or her fault. It's something that has overtaken them, a disease, and now needs to be controlled as well. Okay? And that lack of self-control is something we have to rebuke within ourselves and take control again, or get somebody else to rebuke and begin to cast out. Similarly, people watch all sorts of things on their computers that are not good for them, or on the TV, watch films and programs that are actually, they are not good for you. And when you think about it, you realize, no, this is a sort of self-control that I can no longer exercise. Therefore, I must stop it. It might not just be that, but also writing. We are so used now to mild pornography that we don't even notice it. We do notice if you go from a country area like I normally live in, like at Gatton, or a small city like this one here, to London, say. And I was deeply shocked at the lack of shock of all the people who are looking at people, photographs of people wearing next to nothing, or in the summer, people wearing next to nothing, in a way that is, it would be less erotic if they were naked. And this sort of porneia, which means evil, and graphe, which means to write, this evil writing, evil images, are of course exactly the opposite of our own iconography and our own good writing, the scriptures and the lives of the saints and others, and proper history and biography, and even good novels and stories about the saints and other things, and so on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good novel, but there are an awful lot of them that are now they are there to titillate people rather than to inspire them spiritually, or even just to inspire them with knowledge about how other people feel and think. Okay, so we have to be careful about these things. Sometimes in and of themselves they're not bad, but one can become addicted to things, and we have to maintain a strict control on our understanding of what is really reality. It's like watching TV. TV is fine. Nothing wrong with watching television at all. And over the weekend, not on the weekend, Sunday and Monday, I was with my sister going to see my mother for my birthday. And it's important for them. And I saw some nice things on television, particularly a beautiful gardening program, and one or two quizzes and things that were really beautiful and inspiring and mind exercising and so on. But I noticed amongst the things my brother-in-law was going past, other things you could watch, that there are a lot of other things that were of no interest at all. and not good for you. Okay, so there we go. Where are we now? Was that an aside? it's a good aside anyway. Now, what do you do about such a thing? Well, there is the mother-in-law of Peter. It's a shame we don't know her name. And they made a request of him, the Lord, concerning her. They start off by praying, in other words. Whenever you talk to the Lord, whether when he's wandering around Capernaum or Nazareth or Jerusalem, or now when he's ascended into heaven, whenever you talk to the Lord, you're praying. And they, plural, made request about her to the Lord. Isn't that important? So they didn't just say, she's sick, she's over there, so bad luck, it's sandwiches for lunch. They said, my mother-in-law is sick. Can you do anything for her, please? And they did it in plural. A group of them did it. So presumably Simon Peter's wife. And there we have exactly there why it is that in the Orthodox Church we allow priests to be married. We don't allow them to get married once they're ordained, but we allow them to be married. And that is really important. Okay? Right. So they pray for her. And actually, it's quite a strong word they use. Erotisan, okay, erotisan. They appealed, they begged him to do something, but it has that feeling that, you know, they're really requesting strongly of the Lord to do something. Verse 39 then, having been prayed to, so he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. It's interesting in Mark. I don't know if you compare the different readings. It's useful to do it, but it's also a good thing to keep to a particular gospel and read the whole thing through, rather than bounce backwards and forwards to see and get confused by that. But it's interesting. In Mark it says the Lord laid hands on her. So you need to ask yourself, why didn't Luke say this? He's read Mark and decides not to say that. Well, the reason is quite clear actually when you read the whole of this chapter 4. There's nothing wrong with the Lord laying hands on somebody, but Luke is very interested in the power of the Lord's words, his commands. You know, he's commanded Satan to depart from him. And he's now commanding, he speaks with authority, he preaches with authority, he exorcises the demon with authority. And now what he does is that he heals with the authority of his word as well. He doesn't need to touch anybody or conjure up any big magic or anything. He says, fever, leave her, and it leaves her. Just like the angel said, don't be afraid, and they're no longer afraid. And in each of these cases, as it comes out of his mouth, out of the depth of his being, you can see that the authority comes out of him. He doesn't refer to anybody else. The authority comes from him. When I baptize somebody, I breathe on him. And it's the authority that I have as somebody who's the church coming out of me onto that person. They too receive that sort of authority too. It's an interesting way that breath is used in the Orthodox Church. There are quite a number of times when we breathe and blow or so on people. Those people who are being baptized, or rather being made catechumens, they also blow on Christ. They blow on him and they spit on, they don't blow on Christ, they blow on the Satan, and they blow on him and they spit upon him. So there we have that too. Now, where the Lord is, instantly you get healing. Instantly, as it were, you get oneness. There's no longer anything that's broken or disordered, denatured. The bugs within her have gone. or the bugs within her go back to doing what they're meant to be doing. Or the bugs within her pick up their bags and off they troop, they disappear away, or they die. But anyway, he stood over her, rebuked the fever, and it left her. It goes. Instant. My fathers make a big thing about this. You notice she's not lying there now exhausted, having been ill with a fever. I can remember having had fevers where I was delirious, particularly once in Yemen when I lived in Sana'a. I had a fever there that was really big, and my father came into the room. I thought, in my delirium, I thought that I was a rabbit warren. And my father came in, and I could only see him as an enormous pink rabbit. Anyway, it took me quite a long time to recover from that because I was totally washed out. I felt like chewed string or a perished rubber band or something. There was nothing I could do. I felt completely flaked out. I looked and behaved like stewed rhubarb. I was so lacking in any energy or bone within me. Anyway, this is not the case with Simon Peter's mother-in-law. She immediately jumps up and cracks on with lunch. I'm very sorry to all those women amongst you, but that's what she gets on with. Lunch is now assured. The men presumably didn't know quite the way to the kitchen. But at that time, it would have been a sort of the social norm that she would have provided the food, and she gets on and does so. And this is meant to show not her place in the world, what's she doing in bed? She should be in the kitchen. It's not meant to show that sort of nonsense, but it is meant to show that she is now completely healed and able to crack on with her duty of hospitality, which her son-in-law has already put in place for their family. So she cracks on with lunch. It's interesting, the word that's being used, which is rebuke the fever. The same word has been used before, talking to the demon, rebuke the demon, and it came out of the man. Now he rebukes the fever, and it comes out of the woman. Luke, as before, has balanced a man and a woman. So before we had a man and a woman, now we have a man and a woman also being balanced here too. Okay, verse 40. When the sun was setting, all those who had any that were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. So now it's going dark. So it's no longer the Sabbath. And now it's no longer the Sabbath. The people of the town are no longer frightened to bring those people who are sick. You remember, they're not allowed to heal on the Sabbath unless somebody is on the point of death. Then a doctor can be called, and the doctor can do whatever he or she is going to do. But normally, if somebody's just ill and it's a sort of sickness not unto death at the moment, then you wait until sunset, and then you get on with it. So now they're no longer afraid to bring all those people to the Lord, and they hurry to the middle of the town where Peter's house is, which is between the synagogue and the lake. And it says, now you notice it says, he laid hands on them all. And here we have this flesh to flesh contact between Christ and all those people who are sick. His body, as it were, touches their body and they become whole. I wonder if that reminds you of Holy Communion, where the body of Christ touches your lips, and what do we say? We, and here I'm saying the whole church, but the words come out of my mouth, the servant of God so and so receives the body and blood of our Lord and God and Saviour unto the remission of sins, health of both body and soul, and unto everlasting life. And here we can see that very thing happening. The body of Christ imparts wholeness on all those people who previously were ill. Okay, And then finally, the last bit we're going to do with today, and the demons also came out of many, crying out and saying, "You are the Christ, the Son of God." And he, rebuking them, did not allow them to speak, for they knew that he was the Christ. So demons also pop off, and they know him. And that same word again, rebuke, this time rebuking them to tell them to shut up. The demons have no apostolic office. They have no business in spreading the good news. They cannot spread the good news because they are evil. It's not right either, according to St. John Chrysostom, that Christ should be proclaimed and acclaimed by impure lips. This is something we ought to remember as well. Also, he didn't want the wrong sort of publicity about what sort of Messiah he would be, because the demons, in crying this out, would want the people to think of him as a leader of an army. We know that at that time there are plenty of people who were wanting to be leaders of an army against the Romans and against the puppet kings, amongst whom was, of course, possibly Judas Iscariot, but certainly amongst them was Barabbas, Jesus Barabbas, in whose place the Lord died. And if you look up anything about the Jewish wars, you'll see that terrible calamity came upon the Jewish people when they followed all these false messiahs, of which there were plenty at the time. But Christ was the sort of Messiah who chose to die rather than to kill. Okay, and that obviously the demons didn't want, because they knew very well that this would be one of those things that would destroy their own ability to do things. Okay, we'll pray for your grandmother Anton in a minute, but let's just see who they say what. That's good. People are praying. I'm glad that your brother is in total peace. May God bless him. Sahim, God bless you. Good morning. And Ian also. And Joan, good morning. Thank you for your greetings for my birthday. Suzanne also. And Natalia is lucky enough to be into the ruins of the synagogue. Wow, lucky you. That is a wonderful thing. And Carl, lost self-control, demonic. Wow, very sobering thoughts. I try to eat less sugar and fat. Oh. Reading books excessively. Yeah, anything that takes over your life. It's rather like a long time ago, children used to tell me how wonderful all these David Attenborough programs are on TV, and they are wonderful. David Attenborough, for those people who don't live around here, is a British naturalist. He used to catch animals to put them in zoos, and then he realized the error of his ways and went to look at them instead and introduce people to them. They are wonderful programs that he does. But very few of the children who told me how wonderful these programs were ever lay down on their own bellies and looked in the grass in their back gardens, where you can see many wild animals, which, if you blew them up to the size of lions, would be a jolly sight more ferocious than any lion. I remember, thank God, when I was a child, we didn't have TV or radio or anything, and rarely had electricity. So I was quite often outside in the garden, in different foreign countries from here. And you'd see things like an antlion, with their little pit, and they throw out dust to confuse and knock an ant over, and then grab it in their jaws and suck it back down into their lair. Or there'd be trapdoor spiders, and I'd tease the trapdoor spider by taking a piece of grass and dragging it along, and the trapdoor spider jump out and grab the grass and, what? That's not an insect, and then go back in again, having sworn at me. Or things like that. And then in this country also, you can do the same. And I mean, we don't have lions and bears and wolves and stuff around, but we have a tremendous range of really fascinating things. You just need to go looking for them and go tiny game hunting instead of big game hunting. And it's a very interesting thing to do, and it means that rather than watch somebody else do something, this is part of the problem with books. They can be very good, but once you've learnt the lesson from them, move on and remember you need to be alive. So an hour or 10 minutes even spent on your belly looking at an ant's nest and seeing what goes on will teach you more about natural history than any number of wildlife programs on television. Engaging with people, maybe at the local club or pub or bowling alley or something, or in a school as a volunteer or as a teacher, will teach you more about humanity than any number of films will teach you, because all the characters are always there. They're there. They crack on with things. If you go down and within every group of people there is a nascent Mussolini or an Adolf Hitler or a Gandhi or a Saint Paul, within every group of people, every one. And you see these people, but they're there. They're that person in their own sphere of influence. And you can learn a huge amount about those sorts of people. Volunteer to look after, I don't know, the spiritual welfare of the local sports club or something. And you'll find that you don't need to watch films anymore because there they are in front of you. Okay. Reading books, yes. Books are great. I love books. And if you came to the monastery, you'll find thousands and thousands of them there. And probably all of us excessively bound up by books at that monastery. And the least little thing, we'll buy a new one, even instead of eating. And with the hope that somehow or other, through osmosis, we would learn what this person has to say. But in the end, you cannot learn about God through books. You might be sent off in the right direction, but you learn about God through books, but you know God through prayer. Okay? You pray and you know God. Everything in moderation. Could it be that subconsciously we make an idol of, yes, we do. We make an idol of that thing, perceive the thing as our salvation. Yes, we think that if we read, if we watch films, if we do all sorts of things where basically somebody else is actually alive and we're engaging with their life rather than with our own, then we have this sort of vicarious way of thinking that we also are alive, but actually you're not. And I'm not saying that books are a bad thing. Entertainment is a good thing. Storytelling is something all humans, every time, always done. And it's a good thing. In the end, you too need to be engaged in life and be actually alive. Dino says, through January through December, challenging months to reduce sugar. Not December to January, note everybody. God bless you. That's because Anton finds January and February the worst months to reduce any sugar. Dear, oh dear. Language learning apps, prompting me to more and more. Yep. Good morning, Stella. God bless you. Thank you for your greetings. That's very nice. Thank you, Beverly. Many years to you also. Films or psychology degrees. Life is not meant to be objectified. No, indeed. It's meant to be lived. And so many people are not actually alive. And say to yourself, am I alive today? How can I prove it? What have I done to show that I'm really alive? Morning, Troubadour in Fog. Happy birthday. God bless you. Natalia. It's one thing to read books, another to bump into the existence. Yes, indeed. Yes, you have to bump into the existence of yourself pretty strongly. You're currently reading about the different heresies. Is that recommended? Yes, it's great fun. And the best person for heresies is St. John of Damascus. And the way that he does it is just wonderful. He goes through all sorts of heresies and saying, ooh, I think that might be, ooh, maybe I'm a heretic. Should go out and build a big bonfire and jump on it. Reading now In the Beginning by Harry Beckow, finding it a bit disturbing. Well, that could be interesting. You should certainly read books. I'm not going against that. Certainly watch films. I'm not going against that. Certainly if you have a television, watch that. Certainly if you have a computer, enjoy that. Certainly get onto YouTube and, I don't know, watch your daily dose of internet or something. Some of them are very funny, and some of them reveal lots of things about also, it's quite a good thing from time to time to laugh your head off at some poor soul who's sliding down their front drive because it's so icy and they didn't notice. But that is not life. That is entertainment. These are things that are pastimes. Okay, they let time go past, and in the end, we need to grasp time, grasp it. Okay, take hold of it, and squeeze every bit of life out of that time, one way and another. Okay. Nicholas Kasatkin, yeah, St. Nicholas of Japan. I'll find email in your channel description, yes. Well, yes, St. Nicholas is a marvellous person. There are quite a number of really good books written about St. Nicholas, aren't there? If you get onto Cassell's, or I think it's one that's published by Cassell's, or certainly Eden.com used to sell books about St. Nicholas of Japan that I used to sell to them. Maybe Amazon will probably have something as well. There are some really good books written about him. Righto. Okay. Please remember to pray for Andrew, who has cancer, and for his wife Helen, who's obviously coping with Andrew's cancer. Please pray for him particularly today. We also pray for Dino and his brother Pepe, who's now died, that God may keep him in the heart of God. May God bless him and his family and all those who loved him. And the bereavement and the sense of bereavement is to do with how much you love somebody. If you don't love somebody, you don't feel bereaved. But if you love somebody, the feeling of bereavement can be intense. And also pray for Anton's grandmother. I don't think you gave us your grandmother's name, Anton, but we'll pray for her as well. 10 years ago. It's amazing how quickly time goes past. Shocking, isn't it? I was thinking, gosh, that's 10 years ago. Okay, God bless you and keep you. Your prayers. God willing, tomorrow. Look at the sunshine. How nice. I'm going to get a taxi to go and get my car. God bless you.